we have one more segment on the day, and it's kind of a few different things in one since a lot of news broke within a day of each other. But this broke this morning in the Jerusalem Post. U.S. threatens Israel resolve humanitarian crisis in Gaza or face arms embargo, according to a report. So the Jerusalem Post prints, the U.S. told Israel that it would impose an arms embargo on the Jewish state if it does not resolve the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, N12 reported on Tuesday. The White House reportedly expressed deep concern over the deterioration of the humanitarian situation in Gaza in recent weeks and called for urgent steps within the next month to reverse this trend. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant received a letter from the Biden administration outlining American positions on Gaza, N12 noted. The letter reportedly called for Israel to be held to its March 2024 commitment to allow and not prevent the transfer of American humanitarian aid or aid supported by the administration in Gaza. As part of this commitment, the State Department would conduct an audit in accordance with the aid law. The letter reportedly highlighted that since March, the lowest amount of aid entering Gaza was recorded in September, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. It added that Israel had 30 days to rectify the situation, and that failure to do so would lead to consequences for Israeli aid as per American law. Really interesting that in mid-October, they conditioned arms with a 30-day deadline to get their shit in order. So by the time Israel is held to account, wink, wink, it will be November 14th, which just happens to be about a week after Election Day. Interesting.
Well, also, they want to be able to run on, well, see, that's going to be off the table if Trump wins.
Yeah.
He's not going to condition aid.
We're going to give you that arms embargo in 30 days if they don't let more aid in. Of course, we know what's going to happen.
He's trying to give the lesser of two evils people a fig leaf.
Right.
Well, no, it's not the same because they're ready to do an arms embargo.
Right.
And if Trump gets elected, there won't be an arms embargo. You said you wanted an arms embargo. They're going to do it.
Why 30
days? Of course, they're never going to do it.
Right, of course, because first of all, why else would you give 30 days? 30 days, that's a long time when starvation is being used as a weapon of war, is it not? We hear you're deliberately denying the entrance of food into northern Gaza. If you don't straighten this out in a month, there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah.
After
the election.
How about 48 hours? Oh, because the election's not in 2 days. The election is in 3 weeks. And we have to make the deadline after the election, so that after the election, Matthew Miller can get on stage and say, well, we reviewed what they did, and it turns out they're letting more aid through, so here's more weapons. We all know that's what's going to happen.
Aren't they calling this the "We're Scared Shitless of Jill Stein" bill?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. The "We're Scared Shitless of Jill Stein" letter. The "We're Scared Shitless of Jill Stein" memo. The Green Party surge memo. Yes. But here's what they're referencing, folks, in that report. So the UN, this was published on Friday, the UN says no food has entered northern Gaza since the start of October, putting 1 million people at risk of starvation. Again, they have a 30-day deadline to fix this. 1 million people are at risk of starvation. They have a month to let more aid in, or else there's going to be hell to pay. Don't test us. What a joke. No food has entered northern Gaza since the start of October, putting 1 million people at risk of going hungry, the World Food Program told CNN on Friday. In August, approximately 700 aid trucks entered northern Gaza. In September, only 400 aid trucks entered, after commercial operations ceased at the Allenby crossing on the border between the occupied West Bank and Jordan, the WFP added. No food trucks have entered northern Gaza in October. No food trucks have entered northern Gaza in October, the WFP told CNN. On Wednesday, the WFP said in a report that the aid entering the Strip has plummeted to its lowest level in months, forcing the organization to stop the distribution of food parcels in October. Hunger remains rampant and the threat of famine persists, WFP added. If the flow of assistance does not resume, 1 million vulnerable people will be deprived of this lifeline. I'm assuming that's what they meant. Meanwhile, 2 of central Gaza's main bakeries have been shut down for 3 days, according to CNN footage and bakery workers. Albana Bakery and Zadna Bakery in Deir al-Balah, both supported by the WFP, have halted operations due to a lack of flour and fuel, bakery workers, and residents told CNN. Quote, I'm the head of a family of 6. The day I work, I can feed my family. The day I don't, we don't eat, said Ahmad Abed, an employee at Albana Bakery. People are chasing flour, and we go to bakeries searching for where bread is available. Earlier this week, the UN's OCHA said September saw the lowest volume of commercial and humanitarian supplies entering Gaza since at least March of 2024. So this also came out over the weekend, a report by the BBC. Israeli attack on northern Gaza hints at retired generals' surrender or starve plan for war. So we'll look into this a little bit. On Saturday morning, a message was posted on social media by the Israeli military's Arabic spokesman warning people living in the D5 area of northern Gaza to move south. D5 is a square on the grid superimposed over maps of Gaza by the Israeli Defense Forces. It is a block that is split into several dozen smaller areas. The message, the latest in a series, said the IDF is operating with great force against the terrorist organizations and will continue to do so for a long time. The designated area, including the shelters located there, is considered a dangerous combat zone. The area must be evacuated immediately via Salah al-Din Road to the humanitarian area. The humanitarian area designated by Israel in the message is Al-Mawasi, previously an agricultural area on the coast near Rafah. It is overcrowded and no safer than many other parts of Gaza. BBC Verify has tracked at least 18 airstrikes on this designated humanitarian area. Many people appear to be staying put despite Israeli airstrikes and artillery bombardments. When I went down to an area overlooking northern Gaza, I, meaning the author of this piece, I assume, could hear explosions and see columns of smoke rising. The intensity reminded me of the first months of the war. The suspicion among Palestinians, the UN, and relief agencies is that the IDF is gradually adopting some or all of a new tactic to clear northern Gaza, known as the General's Plan. It was proposed by a group of retired senior officers led by Major General Giora Eiland, who is a former national security advisor. At its heart is the idea that Israel can force the surrender of Hamas and its leader, Yahya Sinwar, by increasing the pressure on the entire population of the north. In his office in central Israel, he laid out the heart of the plan. Since we already encircled the northern part of Gaza in the past 9 or 10 months, what we should do is the following thing to tell all the 300,000 residents that the UN estimates is 400,000, that's the BBC's edit, who still live in the northern part of Gaza, that they have to leave this area and they should be given 10 days to leave through safe corridors that Israel will provide. And after that time, all this area will become to be a military zone. Wow. What did we say would happen 1 year ago? Exactly this. Exactly this. It will be the eradication of Gaza to the point where pretty soon they will say, we are not bothering any longer to distinguish between civilians and combatants. We are giving you X amount of time to leave, past which point this is a military zone. Everybody here will be assumed combatant. And all the Hamas people will still, though whether some of them are fighters, some of them are civilians, will have two choices, either to surrender or to starve. So that is, very plainly put, starvation being used as a weapon of war. Eiland wants Israel to seal the areas once the evacuation corridors are closed. Anyone left behind would be treated as an enemy combatant. It's the BBC writing this, by the way. The area would be under siege with the army blocking all supplies of food, water, or other necessities of life from going in. He believes the pressure would become unbearable and what is left of Hamas would rapidly crumble, freeing the surviving hostages and giving Israel the victory it craves. Of course, that's not what he thinks. What he thinks is we're going to clear this area. What did we say immediately after October 7th? We said their goal, all you need to do, folks, is check that series of maps that's now a pretty viral image to see the encroachments onto Palestinian territory from 1948 to the present. Take what Netanyahu said on October 7th. They will know an unprecedented response. What that means is that eventually all of Gaza will be declared a militarized zone, and their plan will be to either clear everyone out or kill them. And that seems to be now taking shape in the north.
There are Israeli soldiers wearing patches on their uniforms of Greater Israel, where Israel is from the river to the sea.
Yep.
Of course, their concept of that is with no Palestinians. This, I'm really thinking, and I say this as a Jewish person, well aware of the Holocaust. I'm trying to think of a greater example in history of a people so convinced of their superiority, of their chosenness. We just saw Michael Rappaport go off about Jews being the chosen people. When you combine that kind of an essentially religious belief, and that kind of belief doesn't have to be tied to a religion. It can be nationalism. In this case, it's both, where you've combined that inherently religious concept, which very much like what Pape says about most Israelis being secular, but they all believe God promised them Palestine. It's the same thing that a lot of Jews who are secular believe Jews are the chosen people. So you've got these just extreme Zionists who have completely distorted the religion for their own purposes. And when you combine that with this origin story that Israel really has of the Holocaust being the reason they need this country, and the way they've projected onto the Palestinian people the sins of the Nazis that they had absolutely nothing to do with. When you combine all of that together, it is a recipe for monsters. That is what we're seeing, because they can justify anything to themselves.
Right.
God promised them the land. They are the chosen people. And these people are the Nazis who killed 6 million of us in spirit, if not in literal reality. You put all that together, what can you not do to them? What's not justified?
Yep. I second that. And like I said, now you have a situation where it's October 15th. No food aid has gotten in since October 1st. They're now talking about implementing the surrender or starve plan. Sounds like 30 days, maybe a little bit liberal of a deadline to give them. Hey, if you don't straighten this out within 30 days,
political.
Of course it's political. It's right after the election.
It is just to give the pseudo-progressive Tim Walz free lunch people something to hang their hat on.
Right. They can talk about this for the next 3 weeks.
Now they could say, no, they're going to pass an embargo, but you have to elect her, because if Trump gets elected, he's not going to do the embargo. It gave them, they had really nothing.
Yeah.
They had really nothing. I mean, Cenk Uygur, I keep saying this was maybe the most honest thing he ever said. He conceded it's about the school lunch. He conceded that. He said, I have no illusion they're going to have any different policy. This gives them the opportunity to say, but of course they have another policy.
Right. And whether this arms embargo ever goes into effect, which I assure you it will not, Israel has gotten a little something to hold them over, because we just deployed THAAD anti-missile system to Israel after Iranian attack. So we just sent them. More weapon systems. The U.S. says it will deploy a high-altitude anti-missile system and a military crew to Israel to help bolster that country's air defenses after a missile attack from Iran earlier this month. A Pentagon statement said President Joe Biden had ordered the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Battery and its crew to be sent to defend Israel. Iran launched almost 200 ballistic missiles towards Israel on the 1st of October. The Israeli military said most were intercepted, but a number struck central and southern Israel. Israel has not yet said how it will respond to the attack, but Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says it will be deadly, precise, and above all, surprising. So, once again, folks, this is the state that has 30 days to prove that they give a shit about human life in Gaza. 30 days or else they're cut off.
Yeah.
Wow.
No,
it really has.
In 30 days, there will be a committee convened. They say it that it would be investigated. They don't even say it's gonna kick in 30 days.
Of course. And the fact that Biden is being pushed into this arms embargo quasi-promise, because he's not promising to do an arms embargo. He's saying unless you straighten yourself out within a month, we're going to cut you off. You notice the bombardment has really intensified these past couple of weeks between the field hospital bombing, the lack of food getting in. We just covered the bombardment of the North more thoroughly on the last show that we did. You're seeing a real escalation in violence in the past couple of weeks. Don't put it past Netanyahu to be escalating this violence as a way to weaken Biden ahead of the as a way to weaken Harris ahead of the election. Don't forget, Netanyahu wants Trump to win. Sure. This is the kind of paradox, because we, as well as Shama Sawant, feel very strongly you cannot reward genocide with a vote. That means you have to make it your intention to tank the Democrats in Michigan, to make them pay, right? To very, very firmly establish that genocide will not be rewarded. You can't build a movement that is soft on genocide. No political movement soft on genocide is worth building. So you have to punish the Democrats. On the other hand, don't be confused. Netanyahu wants Donald Trump to win, and it would not surprise me at all if he is escalating violence to create more political problems for the Democratic Party. I think that's totally possible. But do we know that? No. But we've seen a dramatic escalation on top of the horror show that's been happening. But a dramatic escalation these past couple of weeks. Don't put it past them to do that for purely Machiavellian purposes.
Sure. Well, you're talking about somebody who sabotaged every peace effort because he doesn't want to go on trial.
Exactly. I mean, that's who you're dealing with here. You're dealing with someone who will take every edge they can get, who feels desperate of his own kind,
right?
In his own way.
He has his own self-interest. Ideologically, everything that Israel does should be understood through the lens that their intention is to create greater Israel. They believe they should have done it from the beginning, and they're going to do it now. And in 100 years, they can have a Palestinian dance at their concerts and do some kind of land acknowledgement.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Please clap.